15th Board of Public Affairs meeting. First on the agenda will be to approve the minutes of the September 1st board meeting. You've all been presented with that. See any additions or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
Dick, I don't.
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't see any additions or corrections. I move that we accept the minutes for September 1st.
I'll second.
Tom,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Annette,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a hearing of public concerns. A number's been provided. We'll hesitate here about 30 seconds and see if we get any call-ins. If not, we'll proceed and take the calls if they come in. Okay, next on the agenda will be Clerk Treasurer's report. Laura?
The board's been presented with the clerk treasurer's report for the month ending August 31st, 2020.
Any questions or?
No, this is Karen. I'll make a motion. We accept the clerk treasurer's report.
This is Annette. I'll second it.
Karen,
Yes.
Annette,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Jim?
Yeah.
Tom?
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda will be a help desk service discussion. Joe, would you like to lead that, please?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi, Joe.
If you recall back in August, before the meetings, we discussed possibility of having to require help desk services from another company, but cold water is going to not offer those services after October 31st, if you recall. At that time, we discussed about NRTC, which is a good company, a national company, and we entertained that and going through that process. I felt like we needed to look for something that might be more scalable and maybe something based in Ohio if we could. ComNet is a large telecommunications provider with a lot of different services in this part of the state. We actually partner with them currently. One of the big circuits that we received from Chicago, they actually transport that circuit from Chicago back all the way to Ridgeville, then it's handed over and transported to us there. Several years ago, they started doing some help desk, but they didn't have a big offering. They just had a few people, and they weren't as invested into it as they are now. I had a meeting with a fellow, several meetings, as a matter of fact, and they can offer us the help desk services we need. And it's also a scalable service, which is why I started looking at more closely. We can start out with help desk services as you see in the memo that we included in your packets. Initially, it was a considerable savings over what we were going to pay. But we can also scale this up in the future for a lot of network operation support for our cable modem CMTS routers. They can actually interface those. They can if later on the incognito product were to cause us catastrophic failure, we can get with them, and they actually have motor provisioning software and a whole system that they do for some companies. They provide service, help desk, and we call it NOC services, which is Network Operations Center. They provide those services to several companies in about 22 states. Because they purchased another company that used to do that. If the board's agreeable to us moving forward in this direction, what I would do is I would send Rhonda the agreement for her to review and approve the form. I asked them to place a line on that agreement for the city attorney to approve the form. And then once that occurs, then I would present that agreement along with the resolution probably in the next board meeting. There will, either way we go, whether we with these folks or the other folks, we're going to have a little bit of a window of time that we won't have 24/7 help desk services. But I've arranged that we will take care of it during the day here. And then I believe CRC will take it back over at night to take the calls and pass it along to us. So our customers won't be left in the dark. I think going forward, I think with the scalability of this product and this agreement it has all the rate structures in it in such a way that it would just be a new service. We'd amend it and just start paying for services. Anybody have any questions?
Pretty substantial savings, $10,000 over. Cold water. Yes. Good deal. Any other questions or comments for Joe?
A question from me. This is Karen. Sorry if I stepped on somebody there, but I wondered, Joe, I thought the first part of the information that we received as a board said that would cost more. Is there some change that we made to incur a cost savings that wasn't presented initially?
The cost savings is that the ComNet doesn't charge as much for the straight help desk service as what the NRTC and Coldwater and those folks do. They primarily are a network operations center that gives support. And those rates are, they charge you per subscriber when you go that route per month, and then you don't pay increased costs. So when it's all said and done, if we want more network support than we currently receive, we could end up spending more per year, but you're going to somewhere on the level of what you used to get from Black Box and Logos, where you get enhanced services. The reason for this is because these people do a lot of other things other than help desk. NRTC, that is their primary function, is help.
Okay, thank you. That does make a lot of sense then. Good way to figure, knowing all that you have in front of you and then being able to a la carte and pick and choose what you need. At least we know where we can go if we need to in the future, if there's some problem with what we have now or what we intend to. Thank you, Joe.
Hey, Joe, this is Jim. Are you confident that we'll be able to handle the calls in the transition period?
Yes. I've already worked that out with our team, and we'll take care of them during the day. And I've got a plan in place to help that. Matter of fact, Jim, a lot of our calls don't come in during the daytime. We get some, but not the time, unless we have an outage. Most of the calls come in after hours.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
And we're only talking probably about 2 week period of time.
2 weeks, you say?
Probably a couple of weeks, because what we're doing with ComNet is this is not a full-blown implementation like you would have at times. So I think we can get it done a lot faster.
Okay. Okay, good.
Any other questions or for Joe? If,
Thank you, folks.
if not, I'd like to see Joe go ahead and proceed with that and maybe get the contracts together and get them to Rhonda. That's agreeable with the board.
Do we need a motion, Dick?
Don't know. I have to ask Rhonda.
I think it's fine to just authorize him to get that together, and then when we have a contract, we'll present a resolution for you to approve the contract.
Right.
Oh, good.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next is next on the agenda is authorization to pay the bills. Sorry, Dawn, I skipped you, but I'll be back.
Motion to pay the bills.
I will second.
Jim,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Annette,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda will be electric, water, and communications financial updates. Dawn, would you like to elaborate?
Yes, I'm just gonna share my screen here real quick. We thought that it would be beneficial to run through a quick financial update in order for the board to have a good understanding, especially as we move forward with budgeting and trying to determine what we're gonna have next year. Understanding where we are currently and in some cases, a little bit of an idea of where we're going in the future. So, okay. So we will go ahead and start with electric. The electric fund with month ending August 31st, 2020, we have an ending available cash balance after encumbrances of about $5.9 million in the operating fund and around $750,000 in the capital improvement fund, the electric capital improvement fund. If you recall at the last board meeting, the BPA approved a $300,000 transfer from the electric operating to the electric capital improvement fund. But that had to go through another step, which made it to council, I believe, the first meeting in September. So we will see that transfer balance reflected in next month or in September's financial statements, which come out at the beginning of October. So currently we are budgeted for revenues around 1.7. Our average through the first 8 months of the year, we have been collecting about 1.5 on average. We are budgeted in expenses of 1.8, and we have spent on average 1.3. So we worked really hard, and kudos to the electric department, all of the departments really. We're doing everything that we can to live as frugally as possible while maintaining the reliable services that we are known for. So overall, the electric operating and electric capital funds combined have spent roughly about $1.4 million more this year than what they've collected or what has been collected in revenue. However, if you recall, that deficit spending was projected to occur even before the COVID pandemic because of the amount of capital projects that we have budgeted for in 2020 that we were anticipating to pay with cash. So In speaking with the BMU team, there's been lots of conversation about how to get the information across as clearly as possible. And one of the ideas was to take the electric operating fund as well as the electric capital fund and take their balances, put them together and show a graph of the total cash that we've had available in each fund. So what you are looking at here is the electric operating and electric capital reserve together. And years past, they had been fairly stable. And in the beginning of 2020, we were not accumulating at the rate we would typically see to fund the next year's capital. And you also see that beginning in April through July and into August, those cash balances are trending down. But again, this is something that we had anticipated doing over time because of the capital projects. It's just been at a little bit of a quicker rate when it's coupled with the impact of loss of sales due to COVID. Last year, you guys may remember, in May and in December, we transferred a total of around $4.55 million from the electric operating to the electric capital reserve fund. The 2020 budget includes a cash transfer of $2.3 million to fund capital for the 2021 fiscal year. And as stated before, at the last BPA meeting, you guys approved the $300,000 transfer. So we have roughly a remaining appropriation of $2 million, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Okay. So in August, we went through the projections that were done by Sprow and Associates. And so I was just going to do a quick update on that. The original 2020 forecast that we utilized to develop the electric budget is in the first row. We were anticipating selling about 192 million kilowatt hours this year and collecting a total across all of our classes in the charges for services line of 19.8 million. So we had Sprow and Associates, which is a consulting firm that we use here at BMU, look at our forecast, utilize our actual sales data through August, and also look at future sales projections from the Energy Authority to develop a forecast on what we could anticipate and project through the rest of the year. Specifically, we were wanting to know what the impacts of the March shutdown were going to do to us, and if they would be able to determine how far forward we would carry those impacts. And obviously, there are many variables that are beyond our control that impact the forecast. So we continue to monitor it monthly. But the one common forecast that we've been tracking along with is the AMP TEA forecast. AMP sends us updated capacity plans. Well, they'll send it to us as often as we request it, but typically a couple times a year. And we have been tracking pretty closely since the beginning of June with their forecast. And right now they have us projected at about a $2.5 million difference in the original 2020 forecasted budgeted revenues. If you take what we've collected so far and you annualize it, as we have done many times with the budget, we are anticipating that we'll be in the $2.3 million range. So with that, we have, Nate and I have met with Lori. Lori and has been involved in conversations. I would say, I think we probably actually started this conversation in early May, knowing that if we didn't have a turnaround, that we could potentially be meeting the threshold where we would need to make a budget amendment, which is not done very often as far as taking money out of a budget. But it's more than likely that we will be coming to you either the next meeting or the meeting after that and asking for the board's approval to do a negative appropriation out of our expense budget to account for the fact that we are not going to collect the anticipated revenues that we had originally forecasted. So just letting everyone know in the event that there are any questions about that, that we'll probably be talking about it in the future. Sobel is also working with our sales data, applying it to the forecast and trying to determine the revenue that we will have to work with for next year. So those numbers will be coming out with the budgeting process and directly impact the amount of capital projects that we'll be able to complete. So thought that it was important to, although we're collecting less revenue, to look at the percentage of breakdown for each class, because it directly impacts the cost to provide that service to our customers, as well as the revenue, because each rate class is set up slightly different. So this graph gives a comparison of the total revenue billed by class and the kilowatt hour sales each year. So it's a total amount, and 2020's is projected. As you can see, the total makeup percentage of sales is close to what we would typically see, but the total amounts billed for each class is lower. And I believe that is a combination of COVID and being shut down and limited business operations. And we naturally see a little bit of fluctuation in that due to weather and the fact that people, our customers, industrial, commercial, and residential, will go out and they will buy more efficient equipment or appliances for their house. So I think there is some natural change. But the overall decrease in sales, I believe, is lost due to COVID. We also watch what our average kilowatt hour, we take all of the bills as well as the total sales, and we average it out and come up with a number on what the average customer would use. So the residential is exactly how we would expect it to be, slightly up. That makes sense. People are home. And the commercial and industrial classes are down. Too far. And final for water. As we had discussed before, we started the year off lower than what we had projected. At that time, the first few months of the year were unseasonably warmer. I believe the last I heard it was around 9 degrees warmer on average, the first quarter, which impacts your sales. And we also had a few businesses that either changed their operation or they went out of operation. But at that time, we were not worried about it. However, when we move forward, COVID compounded, and you will actually see in August, it appears that sales are starting to trail off. We had a very good July, which is great. It was the second warmest July on record since 1995, and I thought it was a great time for that to happen. It was a positive thing for BMU. But now it appears that the sales are trailing off. In August was not nearly as warm as what July has been. Before I go to water, does anyone have any questions, comments?
Dawn, can I ask, I don't know if this is the time to ask or not, but how are our delinquencies? Are they up, down?
The delinquencies are a lot better. The clerk's office sent me over the information last week. I had planned on putting it together for you guys in a graph, and I did not get that part done. There are actually, I could tell you that it's definitely gotten a lot better, because in August we collected around $1.74 million and we billed 1.79, which just came out. So in months past, we've had a couple $100,000 difference. And so with us moving forward with disconnects, with you guys changing the amount available in the Good Neighbors Fund, and people seeking out that assistance that's available out there, whether it be from NOCAC or local churches, the delinquencies are starting to turn around. So I don't have the figures in front of me, but I can tell you we can see it between the amount collected and the amount billed.
Good, thank you.
But Lori, you can chime in here if you'd like, but I know they were able to pull a report that gives the outstanding for 30, 60, and 90 days. And the 90-day and the 60-day, all of them were down considerably.
That's true. We're getting people caught up. At this point, I'm going to say we're starting to see more of what we would normally expect on late notices and tags. So that's a good thing for us. And they have utilized the funds, the agencies, Good Neighbors Fund, NOCAC have been wonderful. And I don't think we have too many people struggling at this point. So we're glad to announce we're coming out of it.
And shout out to Lori and her crew, because they have handled a lot of those calls. And you know, some of our customers have been nice and some have not been so nice, and that can be really hard, especially during this time. So thanks to Lori and her staff. Are we ready for water?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So month ending August 31st, we have available cash after encumbrances in the water fund of about 1.3 million. And in the operating, and 168,000 in the capital. Our budgeted revenues were 203,000, and on average we have collected around 196,000. Our budgeted expenses are around 196,000, but we have only spent 178,000. So although we're lower on our revenues, we are also lower on our expenses, which is helps significantly. Overall, the water fund, as you recall, we've done several capital projects this year: South William Street, North Industrial Park, with portions of those projects going to be funded by grants. I spoke with city engineer Wieland this last week, and he said that we could expect on the South William Street project to receive the grant money reimbursement back probably within the next 30 days. And that the North Industrial Park grant reimbursement would come in probably the next 45 to 50 days. So we should start seeing the impacts of the grant reimbursements hit the water fund here in either probably mid-October. Went ahead and put a graph together also of the total fund balances for water. And so the water capital reserve along with the water operating fund are significantly less than what we have historically had in this fund, but we are starting to trail up. And again, once we receive that reimbursement, I think you'll see this get back up closer to what we've had in years past. In 2019, we transferred $980,000 to the capital fund, and in 2020, we have transferred and advanced around $611,000 for projects. As far as projections for water, I believe that we're probably going to come in within $95,000 of what was originally forecasted. In the fall of 2019, the BPA authorized a 3-year rate plan for the water fund. And that took effect, I believe, with bills rendered on or after December 20th. So for this year, we had a rate change. That rate change in water service model had losses that were built in. And what was built into the model was enough to offset the impacts that we have seen with COVID. So as far as the water fund, I don't anticipate that we probably will do any budget amendments unless that number would come in larger. We have seen an increase in residential consumption as far as gallons per residential bill, but a decrease within commercial and industrial. And then we are to communications. As far as August 31st, 2020, we have an ending cash balances after encumbrances of around 1.4 million in the operating and just over 20,000 in capital. Again, we are a little bit under on our average revenue collection, with collecting on average about $198,000 a month. But we are also under on our average expenses for each month, with spending about $197,000. So far this year, communications operating fund with the capital reserve fund has spent about $37,000 more than what it's brought in revenue. So, as far as the total cash balances available in the communications, you'll see that they have fared pretty well in 2020, and they have more available to them in 2020 than they did in 2019, but they're slightly under where they were in 2018. So overall, communications is doing fairly well. And with that, do we have any questions?
No questions, comments from the board or anyone? Not, thank you, Dawn. I think, of course, we've started working on this way back in March, and we were uncertain to where this was going to go. Looks like we're going to fare better than you and I had talked about. It looks like we're going to fare better than we thought we would.
I believe that to be true for 2020 so far. I mean, I don't know exactly what's going to happen in the end quarter. Where I see our struggles being at this point is determining exactly what we're able to do with our capital projects next year. We've put a lot of the ones that we had in the budget in 2020 on hold. We're starting, and now we're identifying the ones that are going forward. So I'm worried about having the cash available to continue on the path that we've been on at this point. So you're right. I think it's in the electric fund. I think we literally have just given up the margin. And you know, with us having the nonprofit structure, the margin is part of the rate in order to fund the capital.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy. I think that the team has done a great job. It's not easy living on a shoestring, you know, and that's what we've done. So.
And I always look at it as it could have been a lot worse. Of course, we were in the unknown. We had no idea what was going to happen and how long this is going to carry over. We knew it was probably carry over into 2021.
Oh, yeah.
But got a good team, got good people. Laura, the hard work she does. We'll be okay. Any other questions, comments?
No, I think it's a little encouraging when you say, well, like when you brought up, Dick, about the delinquents, it sounds like we're on the road to improving that. And thinking about where we were back in March, I have the impression that we're at least close to where they projected us to be. Would that be a safe assumption, you think?
In which fund?
Well, in the electric fund, I guess that would be the.
No. We still have about $2.3 million. They're anticipating that is lost, meaning not billed, unsold, never coming back type revenue that we'll have to account for. But it's definitely not as bad as it could have been.
Okay.
And the losses in the water fund, they had impacts, but they also had a rate structure change a water model and a rate change, which had accounted for losses in it already. And so that helped offset the impacts with COVID.
Okay.
And two, I think with it being as hot as it was in, midsummer, the generation helped us out a lot.
It did.
Had that not
Talking
sorry,
in the
Jim.
spring, I'm just going to say, remember talking in the spring and we were kind of praying for a hot summer.
Yeah.
It looks like we got our wish. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think it really helped us. We're just working for the day when we can sit back and say, boy, I'm glad that's over. We'll get there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have a whole entire team that really pays close attention to what's going on, and so I think we're going to be fine. But I mean, it's just going to require us to probably take a slightly different path, maybe the same path, just a little slower, in order to do it with financial health.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Thanks again, Don.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda will be comments from BPA and staff. I may start with Rhonda.
Thank you. Nothing else tonight.
Thank you. Laura?
No, thank you, sir.
Mayor?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, let's see, how about Jackie?
No, sir, not tonight. Thank you.
Just want to make sure I don't forget anybody. How about Dawn?
No, thank you.
Nate?
Oh, I'd just like to thank Dawn for her presentation. It's nice that we keep up on that and know where we're at. And it does look like we're surviving so far, but I mean, we've got a little bit of ways to go. This is unknown territory. We're coming up in this fall and this winter. So we hope things work out there. And also like to thank Joe for his work on the help desk and getting that put together and getting that taken care of. And we were hoping to have an announcement for a public power week, but we're going to have to hold off on that. But when we do get that information, we'll get it out to you and maybe get it out there on social media. It's something we're looking forward to doing. So that's about all I have.
Okay, thank you, Nate. Mr. Sprow.
Oh, just thanks again to Dawn and for her for the financial updates, and to Joe for the work on the help desk issue. That's about all I got this evening. Thank you, Dick.
Annette?
I'll just repeat what Nate and Tom have said. Dawn, it's always good to know exactly where things are falling. The graphs help, obviously, but your explanation is going along with the graphs is really very, very helpful, especially for the consumers that are watching. Other than that, no, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Dick. I don't have anything to add besides what's already been said. I do thank everybody for the information. It's good to keep up on it and know that everybody's watching and paying attention and thinking of the future and what could happen and being prepared for it. So it's really good to be part of that group.
Okay. Jim?
I just want to thank everybody for their hard work. I know from attending meetings and stuff that there is a lot of hard work going on by people to get us through this, and appreciate the presentations. It's good to know where we stand. We keep a tab on things. It is people keeping control of the budget and get us through this thing. That's all I had to do.
Thank you. I'd like to echo everything everyone said. I appreciate all the hard work that everyone does to keep us afloat and to keep things moving in the right direction. It takes a lot of work. It's a lot of teamwork, and I'm proud to be part of the team. So everyone keep doing what you're doing and we'll be okay. We'll be fine. And I'd like to add, our Good Neighbor Fund is the highest that it's ever been. And we really appreciate the generous donations. I'm sure that the folks that need a little extra help sometimes appreciate it also. And I guess that's about all I have. I hope I didn't miss anyone. I wanted to thank Joe for his presentation and Dawn. And that's about all I have. And with that, we'll be going into executive session to discuss the employment and compensation of a public employee and acquisition of property. And with that, we'll go ahead and change the links over to the executive session. And with that, I'd like to have the mayor, Rhonda, Laura, Nate, Dawn, Jackie, and the board. Thank you.